Listeners, you all know law firm culture is a product of leadership. My guest today has been the CEO of an extraordinary Texas corporate law firm, and he shares some of the reasons why they became Dallas's best places to work for 9 out of 10 years. Enjoy. Welcome, Phil, to the Future is Bright podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the invite and the ability to talk to you about our firm and what I think is a really special place, especially in the Texas market.
So, you are the CEO of Munsch Hardt Kopf Harr, headquartered in Dallas, but you guys also have offices in Houston and Austin, correct?
That's correct.
Great. And you guys have about 160, 170 attorneys?
Yeah, about 170 lawyers between the three offices, about 100 in Dallas and 60 in Houston, and then 10 in Austin.
Yeah. Could you provide my audience just a brief overview of your firm?
Yeah, it's a unique place, and it started in 1985. 6 young associates, I think they were all 5 or 6 year associates who were at a firm that is still one of our competitors, Winstead firm here in Dallas, decided they wanted to go start their own firm. And so the 6 of them got together one day. They were actually going to start the firm on April 1st, but thought nobody would believe them since it was April Fool's Day. So they've actually started on April 15th in 1985. They had 6 different practice areas: bankruptcy, real estate, tax, corporate, litigation. And so they knew very early on that if they were going to make it, they had to collaborate and cross-sell each other and work as a team. And so that's how they started the firm. And in the last 36, 37 years, they've grown it very strategically. And but that's the background. It's kind of a unique background to have a bunch of associates leave and start a firm that's now as big as we are.
And what are some of the marquee things that make Munsch Hardt Munsch Hardt?
So a couple things, and I guess I'll go more of the kind of the high level practical practice group type area. So we probably are one of the best known real estate firms in the state of Texas. Okay. We have probably the largest group of what I call true dirt lawyers. They're not doing just finance. They're actually representing developers and doing leases and hospitality. Second, the litigation group is our largest, and it's very eclectic. We have probably every kind of litigation you can imagine. Our bankruptcy group is, shockingly for a firm our size, very robust. Russ Munsch, who started the firm, was a bankruptcy lawyer, very well known internationally. Unfortunately passed away in 2017, but his legacy continued. They've done a great job. And then our corporate group, heavily focused on middle market, and we're not doing IPOs, but we're doing a lot of M&A work in the middle market. So I think from a practice group, those 4 pillars is what we have used to weather ups and downs in market. When one group is up, the next one might be down, and vice versa.
When you are talking to laterals, how do you guys describe the firm as opposed to some of the other firms in town?
So we are very hands-off when we're bringing on a lateral, especially at the partner level. We take the position, how your practice needs to work, what kind of rates you need to set, what your clients need. We're not going to be big brother and tell you what you have to bill and what your rate has to be and how you have to do your practice. So we try to give everybody the flexibility. So that's number one, so that you don't have to worry when you come in here, we're going to disrupt your practice. But number 2, the big selling point, and it goes back to those 6 associates, is we are very collaborative, and we cross-sell, and we encourage our lawyers to cross-sell. So when a lateral comes in, we want to know what their practice is like and where can we market them within the firm and within our client base. And we have a compensation system that's set up to reward people for doing that.
That's excellent. Yeah, follow the incentive. That's excellent.
Yeah.
So you've had the helm of CEO for 10 years. I mean, just a little shy, a little bit more of 10 years.
Actually, a little more. Yeah, we're going on 11 now. So.
Yeah. Was it something 10 years ago you were expecting? Was that transition something in your career you thought you were going to step into? How did that come about?
No, I never never dreamt I'd be doing this. No, I actually started in 2006. I took over as the head of litigation group, and then I did a dual roles, litigation and COO. And then at that time, so this would have been 2013, the CEO at the time decided to run for public office. And he said, I just can't do, he had a very active real estate practice. He was running for public office and he was doing CEO. And he said, something's got to go. And so then I was approached, do you want to do the CEO role? And that's how it came about. But no, if you'd asked me, 10, 11 years ago, no, this was not in my business plan.
And are you still practicing? Were you practicing in those 10 years?
So I practiced for the first few years. I had a large jury trial in 2016 that made the board and me realize this needed to be a full-time position because I was out of pocket for weeks and didn't really feel like even though we won the trial, I didn't feel like I was really doing either role very well. And so the board asked me to give up the litigation practice, which took a while to do. And then so since 2017, I've been pretty much full-time.
Are you glad you did that? Do you miss litigation?
I do, and I'll poke my nose in cases every once in a while and let people know how much I know about litigation so I can help them. But no, I do miss it.
Yeah. Okay, so high level for me, you've been at the helm for 10 years. You have seen incredible transformation in the legal industry. I mean, a lot's happened over 10 years. What are you seeing in the market now? You can juxtapose over a period of time if you'd like. Just love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'll give you my thoughts on Texas market first, just because that's my backyard. We saw the influx of all the national firms who came in. Some came in and did it well, some didn't. When I took over this role, the board said, well, let's find out whether we should be talking to these firms. And I call us the cutest girl at the dance because we're about the right size for a national firm to want to acquire, and they can be in all three markets. And I think what we've seen is some of the firms have done really well coming in, some haven't. But we decided to remain independent. And what we saw in our market was a lot of our competitors did merge up into the larger national, international firms. And so I'm friends with all the managing partners of the firms that are like us left. And we've had many conversations about whether there's enough to keep us all busy. And I think we were all doing really, really well. And so we made the decision to just keep Texas-centric. And so I think that, in the Texas market, that's what we've seen. Internationally or nationally, obviously the collaboration or the combinations are really, continue to be at an ongoing pace. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the consolidation of the legal market is like. I keep hearing rumor we're going towards like the accounting firms. I don't think so, but that's what everybody thinks is happening. But we've decided to kind of stay true to our Texas roots and think we can do really well, and our attorneys like that they're not answering to a firm in another city.
Yeah, if I may, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Why not go the CPA route, or why do you think that's not going to happen?
I just think, and again, I'm going to show a little bit of my ignorance. I'm not an accountant, but lawyers are so relational based. It's not like you're coming in doing an audit on a company. You're actually coming in, sitting down with a client. I've got an individual client right now. She's trying to sell oil and gas interest, and you develop those relationships. And I think it's just a little bit different than the accounting firms that are a little more institutionalized. Yeah,
that makes sense. Another question I'd like to ask is, what do clients want right now? Has it changed?
And maybe I'm too old-fashioned. I think clients want to know that if they hire Phil Appenzeller, they're getting Phil Appenzeller, and they're not getting punted off to some other attorney that they don't know. So I do think that I go back to the relational. I just think the practice of law is still relational. I think clients want that relationship. I think the second thing they want is value. Everybody talks about rates. I'm not sure rates is big an issue as it is. Did I get value for the work that was done? And everybody can get hung up on the rates. I think it's more of, did you run the case? Did you run the deal efficiently? And did the client feel they got value? And so I think that, and then I think that, obviously the highest level of service, they want to know that if they're hiring a lawyer, they're getting, pretty close to perfection.
Yeah. You mentioned firms coming into Texas and it's not working. A question I just want to ask is, what isn't working right now? Maybe understanding a little bit of that dynamic of what you see with firms coming into Texas, or just another way to answer that question.
Well, I'm going to show my ego a little bit. Texas business likes having Texas lawyers. And these firms that come in and think they can just plant a flag, I don't think have been very successful. I think the firms that have been successful are the ones who came in and found Texas talent that had the relationships with the businesses in Texas, and when they brought that talent in, they were able to establish relationships. So I think that's the two. I think firms that come in and say, well, just because I have my name, I'm going to come in Texas and get business. That's just not the way Texans think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Any take on tech right now? How are you guys approaching it? How is your guys' kind of philosophy about it?
Yeah, so we actually have developed an AI committee.
Okay.
I would say we're putting our toes in the water. I was at a managing partner meeting the other day where there's about 10 of us that have kind of formed not a coalition, but a group, and everybody was kind of saying, let's sit back and see what the big boys do.
Okay.
And then we can figure out what works and doesn't work, because the expense of doing it is huge, and then the unknown. But our committee is starting to look at what do they think is going to work for us. I think there's certain aspects of AI and the technology that are going to be incredibly transformative in the industry. I don't think it's going to. I always tell this anecdotal story. When I was coming out of law school, everybody thought that Westlaw and Lexis were never going to be the standard, right? You were never going to be out of the books. You were always going to have books. Well, that's gone away.
Yeah.
And so I think the same is going to go with AI. It's going to be transformative to the industry. I just don't think anybody understands fully right now what that looks like.
Yeah, that's fair. When I'm talking with firm leaders, I'm always curious, and I'd love to share that curiosity with my audience. How did COVID affect you guys? Like, what an outrageously transformational, shocking experience for us, and everybody responded differently. Love to hear just how the firm handled it, how you guys did.
So a couple things. First off, my chief of information in late 2019 formed a task force and said, what would happen if we had a global pandemic?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. And he went out and bought a bunch of laptops and technology so that you could connect from home. I mean, we spent a ton of money, and he said, just trust me on this.
Wow.
2 months later, it was happening. So we call him Nostradamus.
What is he predicting right now, Phil? Come on.
Well, he's very skeptical on AI right now, so he's still kind of dragging his heels. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. So when it hit, we were ready for it. And it's funny, I remember the day that we sent everybody home, which I left the office for 2 days, and then my wife kicked me out of the house and told me I had to go back to work. But and that's not a joke. I was on the phone all the time. She's like, I can't take this. So, but I remember talking to a senior executive over at a large real estate company here, who's a good friend of mine, and he says, "Man, if this lasts more than 2 weeks, we're screwed." And then you looked up later, and it was 2 years. But I think so from a technology standpoint, we handled it well. We were pretty aggressive on bringing folks back, and I like to tell this quick story. We had a young associate that we had hired laterally. She started the day we went home.
Oh, wow.
So she was given a laptop, sent home. So when we said, hey, we're going to come back 25%, she came back in, and this was like her first or second day. She comes by my office, and she sheepishly looks in, and she says, I'm sorry, I need pens and paper, and I don't know where they are. So I was like, come on, let's go down to the supply closet and get you hooked up. But that's just a funny story of how it affected, especially new people, because we hired 60 people during the pandemic, 60 lawyers, and getting them integrated and meeting people. And then, the other thing that I did was I hired a physician and a statistician, and he was giving us guidance all the way through. And so when he would tell us, I think you're safe to go 25%, I think you're safe to go 50%, and then it was like, oh wait, we've had another outbreak, go back to 25%. And so we were following his lead.
How fascinating.
He was fantastic. He was out of New York, very hands-on. And then when the vaccine came out, he told us, I think you're safe at this point. We kind of waited.
Can I just dig into that for a second?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Was this your idea? Was this something from your Nostradamus, or how did you get the idea to have this third party? I mean, there's just news coming from everywhere about what to do, but you're getting a professional to give you some advice around this.
And I think that's the point you just made. There was too much noise out there.
Yeah.
and I felt okay. When I found him and it said, okay, he's got this dual role. He can tell us what the stats are, but he's also a physician, so he can tell us how to keep people safe and how, And so we actually, I think we had during the entire time 2 or 3 employees that actually went to the hospital. We had nobody, die. We had nobody on ventilators. Maybe I think we had 1 employee on a ventilator for a little bit. So we kept, and all of those instances were not caught in the office. They were all caught on social events, outside. Yeah. But he did a great job, and so when we got comfortable that that the vaccine was safe, then we said, hey, everybody go get your vaccine. Let's get back in the office, because we were seeing a breakdown in that collaboration, breakdown in training, and I just felt it was really important to get folks back. But what was not a completely popular decision. Let's be sure about that. I was not given a lot of hugs when people came back in the office.
No, and leadership isn't a popular role, typically. There's a lot of elections that are voting popularity at this point, but there's what the country needed was leadership. What organizations needed during COVID was leadership. And having heard the story already and wanted you to share it, I think it's just a great example of what you bring to the table. No one was making friends during COVID most.
No, but and I tell this story. There was the kind of the senior folks came back pretty quickly, and then we had one of our young associates that was back, and 2 of my partners came down to my office and said, we've got a problem in this case. Can we just go whiteboard it? Can we have permission to go into the conference room and whiteboard it? And I said, yeah, let's go. And so we all kept our 6 feet apart, but we brought in the young associate first year and said, hey, just take notes. Just take notes on all this. And so he watches the 3 of us whiteboard an issue out and comes to the end. 20 minutes later, we've got the solution. And I said, Brandon doesn't get that experience on Zoom. He just doesn't. And so, that's why I think we were a little more aggressive, feeling, we needed to have that interaction back, that personal touch.
Yeah. And it's just such a great example of that realization hitting you guys and making sure that your team is properly trained.
Right.
So there's some announcements. It's already public, but you're transitioning your role.
I am.
So more than 10 years and change, you're stepping away. And is this a choice? Is this a term issue? Explain a little bit, and let's just talk about this transition.
Well, my term is coming up to an end early next year. I had made the decision that at the end of the term, it was time to step down. And so I wanted to give plenty of time for a transition. I didn't want to do something that was just knee-jerk and we didn't have everyone in place. So, we've spent the last few weeks talking to those. The nice thing about our firm, we've just got some really great young leaders. They're forward-thinking. They are just really incredible. And I was not worried that if I stepped down, there would be a vacuum. In fact, the issue was who was going to take it, because we had several candidates that could. Awesome. So it was really, it's a testament to our founders. They were hands off early on. And started developing folks like me and others. So it was just time. It was, you get to 10 years, 11 years, and we've got one other thing to accomplish, but I've accomplished pretty much all the goals that we had set as a management team. And so now, to my opinion, it's time to bring somebody else in with new ideas and new thoughts, and hopefully I get my last goal accomplished before I'm out. So,
do you care to share about maybe what options you're thinking about, or what's next? What do you want?
So my current plan, you asked the question earlier, have I missed litigation? So my current plan is to go back litigating. And a couple of my partners in litigation have said, hey, we've already got something we want to get you involved in. And it'll take some time. Look, I'm going to be rusty. I couldn't tell you where my Westlaw ID is, let alone access it. So the plan is for me to go back to litigating, and the firm has been very gracious and said, hey, we know it's going to take time for you to get, your docket back up and things, and so they're giving me plenty of time, but that's my current plan.
That's excellent. I'd love to pivot, and there's some things that have created a legacy for you, Phil, that you've put a stake in, and that have been really important to Phil Appenzeller's approach to leadership, and what's been important for you to put within the firm or continuation of the firm. One of the things you shared with me, what I'd love to talk about, is do the right thing. And this idea of high integrity, doing the things the right way, even if it costs people, yourself, the firm, personal money. Explain that. And I'd love to hear some stories that you have.
So yeah, the fortunate thing, I've got partners who are not completely money motivated, and they're willing to take a haircut to do the right thing for the firm and do the right thing for our employees. I'll give you one example that when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, we were actually scheduled to go on a firm retreat out in Santa Fe, and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars that go into taking an entire group. We had several of our employees down in Houston who lost everything. And I said, you know what, we're not going on this retreat. We're going to take that money and repurpose it and help our employees rebuild their houses. And so, every employee that had a loss, and the partners were 100% on board with it. There wasn't anybody that said, oh, we shouldn't do that. Everybody was on board. And even what was even more fantastic, the hotels and everybody, said, hey, fine, don't come. We'll hold your deposits. And, so, but it was a great story. And I think it was a really good example of, partners who really cared about their employees. And that's something that I've been very, very proud of. I'm proud of our profitability and our expansions and growth, but very proud that we've got a great place for people to come to work and they actually like coming here.
Yeah, critical. It's assets walk out every day. Something
as silly as last night we had a trivia night for our staff. So you try to find things to do that cost you money. You said, are we going to realize any income off of it? No. Did our staff appreciate the fact that we gave them a meal and prizes and all kinds of things? Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Another part that you had shared with me that is just really critical, and it's kind of part and parcel with what you just shared, but it's this. So you guys have won awards, specifically around best places to work in Texas. I believe you shared that your firm is the only firm that's done that over 9 to 10 years. Is that correct?
So we've won Best Places to Work by the Dallas Morning News for the last 9 years. We're the only law firm that has done that or even come close. Last year, because of the way the Houston Business Journal and the Austin Business Journal required you to have a certain number of employees, last year was the first year we were eligible in those cities. And so we won both those cities for the first time.
That's amazing.
And you can probably see behind me, I've got magazines and the awards and everything. It's a big deal to me.
Yeah. Why?
You look. You never turnover is a killer for a law firm, right? I mean, it's just you train people, you spend money, and if they're not happy and they leave, it's just a killer. And so you want to create a place where people are happy coming to work. Yes, maybe they're going to make a little bit less money. I mean, I've got partners that could jump over to some of the big boy firms and make a lot more money. But I always tell people ask me, why did you stay at Munsch? I go, my best friends are here. I mean, the guys that I go to lunch with and the people the associates that I go hang out in their office and talk with. A tree fell in one of our associates' office over the weekend and just sitting with her and talking. I mean, if that personal touch, I think, keeps people here. So we have very little turnover. And I think that's important. I mean, we've got people who've been here their entire careers ever since law school. So, some people may roll their eyes, but that's one of my biggest accomplishments is that we've created a place where people like to come to work.
I think it's hard to roll eyes at something that just creates a safe, consistent place for people to come to that love to work together. As a search consultant and law firm consultant, I think it's gold. It's the moat you have that protects the investment of your firm. It's a competitive advantage. Really, really is. It's powerful. And it's really speaks to why you guys have been able to easily stave off acquisitions.
Well, I think there's two things: stave off the acquisitions, and then to keep our talent from being recruited away. And this story's a little bit of folklore, but we actually had a few years ago. We were interviewing a lateral candidate who, had a big book of business and blew everybody at the management level away. And so we actually asked our associates to come interview. even equity shareholder candidates.
Nice.
So we had an interview session with a bunch of associates, and he basically said, "It's cute that you guys are in here, but I've already got this sewed up."
Oh my gosh.
And I wasn't the managing partner at the time, but the previous one, they went to him and said, "We're not working with that guy," and we didn't hire him. We didn't bring him on. We're like, okay, if the associates say no, then no. And again, empowering people at all levels,
Yeah.
I think is really important, that everybody's got a voice. And I don't care whether they're an attorney or a staff member or, office services or whatever. Everyone's got a voice in this firm.
Yeah. Phil, you're former military. You're a vet. And we just celebrated that, so thank you for your service. How has that influenced you as an attorney and as a leader?
Well, I think two things. First question, as an attorney, I was in the JAG Corps, so I tried more cases than most people try in their entire career. And the JAG Corps does a really, where I was stationed at Fort Benning, and we had a judge who would bring you back in his chambers and tell you everything you did wrong, which was great. It was humbling, but great. It was great training. And he'd bring the prosecutor and the defense, both of us in there at the same time, and to say, "This is what you did wrong. This is what you did wrong."
Wow.
So from a practice standpoint, it was just great training. I think from a leadership standpoint, I worked under some great leaders that you go back to doing the right thing, that were ethical and straight shooters, and that was great. And cared about their people. That was the other thing. They actually cared about the soldiers that were underneath them, and so I think that's probably where I got a little bit of the, I want my people happy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Phil, you're a reader. What's on your desk right now, or any particular authors or books you're enjoying?
So I'm a big McCullough fan.
Okay.
So I've just finished up some of his stuff. I'm actually in a book right now that's I'm not sure I'm going to like, but it's kind of focused on the recent presidential elections, and taking a look at those. I'm not sure I'm going to finish it, but I'm looking at it. It's a New York best time seller. I can't remember the name of the author right now off the top of my head, but he writes really well. But
tell me, I know you had shared, so McCullough tends to focus on Revolutionary War times. Why that? Why does that interest you?
You and I talked about this the other day. I do think it's fascinating to see how men who had such different ideas come together and work across the aisle. And one of my favorite stories is Jefferson and Adams, who fought like cats and dogs, died on the same day, July 4th, but ended up figuring out a way to put this Constitution and this republic together, and set aside their differences. So I just think that's I think we could learn a lot from them. So I really love that concept, and I think that in my leadership style, I've utilized some of that of saying, hey, I got to build consensus, and if we're going to have a contentious issue within the firm, we need to go figure out, okay, how do we build consensus to make a decision? And so typically when we come in to have partner votes, they're usually almost 100% in one direction, just because you get people to say, hey, I know you don't agree with 100% of this, but can I get you to 90? Can we get to 80? So.
If I may, just based on our mutual interest in the subject, I was on that same journey, realizing, why is our country a mess? Why is there so much division among the two parties we have? And I go back and I'm researching, same as you, Revolutionary Times. I'm reading books by McCullough and many other authors, and I realized they were as ridiculous back then as they are now.
Sure.
How the two parties started, particularly it was Adams and Jefferson. And how they fought like cats and dogs, and yet they got stuff done miraculously.
Right.
And best of friends. I mean, it's amazing. And personally, I feel it gives me hope, hopefully, to think that.
Well, and then there's not to get into religion, but depending on what you believe, there's certainly some things that happen. You go, wow, this had to be some sort of providential issue, and you can kind of read, well, was it coincidence? And you're like, I don't know. So that's been fascinating. I'm a preacher's kid, so that kind of stuff fascinates me as well.
Yeah, and again, I can relate with you on that level. Definitely have a dynamic for faith and believing there's some hand involved in what's going on,
Yeah.
um, regardless of what you call it today. Um, so, one final thing I thought was fascinating, I'd love for my audience to learn, is that you're writing a musical. And I'm thinking military, litigator, law firm leader, and here's a musical. Now, help my audience understand some of the dynamic here, and then we'll close things up.
Well, I went to college as a drama major
Okay.
and realized very quickly I probably would be teaching drama because I wasn't
Right.
that good.
Okay.
But over the years, I've stayed very involved in productions. I've acted in community theater and things, and then I'm a musical geek. I love a good musical, and so I thought, you know what? I wonder if I could write one of these. And so it's been a labor of love. It's been going on for a long time. In fact, I set it aside because I thought it needs to sit for a while and percolate, and then I need to go back and see, how much of it's a mess and needs fixing. But so whether it ever sees the light of day, I don't know. But it's been fun to write.
Well, as long as you're having fun, that's the most
Right.
important thing. As long as you're having fun. I would say you have an open invitation to go to a musical with me when you come to New York City.
Awesome.
Us hang out. So, would love to host. Stop by Tavern on the Green as well.
Yeah, great.
So, Phil, how can people find you, contact you, follow you on social media?
So I'm pretty much solely on LinkedIn. So you clearly can find me through there. You can find me on the firm website.
Great.
I don't do a lot of Twitter, don't do a lot of Facebook, but LinkedIn is where I hang out mostly.
Excellent. Phil, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for your time
Chris,
today.
thanks so much for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.